Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome back to African Football This Week, the number one spot to get your African football news from around Europe from the last 7 days.
Are you serious?
And from Kessie scoring an Clasico winning goal, all the way to Aouar swapping international allegiances. Ladies and gentlemen, this week we have a lot of African football news to cover and I can't wait to get started. But of course, don't forget this is only the second ever episode of African Football This Week. So of course I am trying to still build a fan base for it, trying to see how it goes, whether you guys like it or not. So of course, if you guys do enjoy this kind of African football content, please don't forget to like the video down below as it is appreciated and it does help the channel. But of course, jumping into our first bit of news, as I said, French midfielder Houssem Aouar has swapped international allegiances to Algeria, which at 24 years old, the fact that he only had one appearance for France is absolutely criminal. I mean, I guess it's kind of understood considering the kind of talent France have had, considering they've even had the likes of Paul Pogba, who nowadays can't even stay match fit enough to play an hour of football. But of course, looking at Houssem Aouar, it is said that he has said to the press that the president held out his hand to me and it seemed like it was meant to be, which I mean, I thought France was supposed to be the romantic country here. Get your own room. But of course, look at a midfielder like Aouar, obviously playing for Olympique Lyon in the French league for his entire career, 48 goals and 37 assists in 250 career games. I do think Algeria have got themselves a very solid midfielder now and it could totally change the team. Obviously, I do want you guys to tell me in the comment section down below, do you think this is the correct move and how much do you think he'll improve Algeria? Now of course, moving on from transfer news, African Cup of Nations qualifiers are back. Obviously all the teams are announced, which I'm not going to mention every single team because we could be here for quite some time. But of course, all eyes will be on the fact that Chris Hughton is the brand new manager of the Black Stars of Ghana and he will be taking charge of his first game. Hopefully the former Premier League manager can brighten up this Black Stars team.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
But obviously, jokes aside, he is a manager with lots of experience. I mean, to just say he's been around for a while would be a bit of an understatement. I mean, he was there as a player when Tottenham Hotspurs last won a trophy.
It's been 84 years.
I do think he is a fantastic manager, and we'll have to see what Ghana are able to do versus the likes of Angola. Obviously, moving on to kind of league news in terms of African football, we are going to start off with Europe and looking at European news in terms of football. Obviously, the only news in the Champions League is the fact that Napoli played against Frankfurt, and once again, Victor Osimhen did score 2 goals versus Frankfurt, which I mean, a rumor says it that Victor stands for victory because that man just can't seem to stop scoring. 4 goals in 5 games in the Champions League for him now. He just seems to be totally unstoppable. Looking at our next bit of European news, we did have Andre Onana getting 6 saves versus Porto in the Champions League that had secured into a spot in the next round of the competition, which I mean, I haven't seen saves like that since, well, I mean, he definitely didn't save like that to stay in the international team for Cameroon. That's to be certain. But of course, look at a tiny bit of Europa League news. We did have the likes of, now I apologize for pronunciation here, but Royal Union Saint Gilloise, obviously the Belgian team, currently second in the Belgian league, did get a shock 3-0 win versus Union Berlin in a game that saw 2 African players scoring with the likes of Ivory Coast midfielder Amani and the likes of Madagascar midfielder Lapersoin. Once again, I'm so sorry for pronunciations, but it is so great to see African footballers get their name out there on a gigantic European stage. And once again, if this team, this Belgian team, are able to pull off a few surprises, Africa could get some major credit. Now, of course, our last tiny bit of African news in Europe before we jump into the domestic leagues, we do have the Conference League as Nice crushed the likes of Sheriff 3-1, win a game where 3 African players scored, including the likes of Terem Murphy, who did score in the previous match week as well, taking him to 16 goals in 26 games.
Hey, that's pretty good.
I mean, the fact that this man plays for the same nation as a striker as someone like Victor Osimhen just shows that he won't get the credit he deserves. But Murphy, having an absolute season of his life, deserves a lot more credit. And of course, the last bit of European news is the fact that former Leicester City striker Islam Slimani scored the winner for Anderlecht versus Villarreal, which of course, looking at European football as a Manchester United fan, I'm always happy to see Villarreal go out. But of course, before we jump into domestic European news, it is time for another game of Guess the Footballer. Now, of course, the winner from last week was a man by the name of Kishan, sorry for pronunciation, who did guess Choupo-Moting to be the player to guess from the previous episode. Now, of course, if you guys don't remember how this works, essentially, I'm going to be giving you guys 3 hints at an African football player, and you have to guess who it is in the comment section down below. Now, of course, for this week, for hint number 1, we have an Afcon winning player who may still be playing or may not still be playing. For hint number 2, he has played as both a defender and an attacker throughout his career. And hint number 3 is he's played with the likes of Steven Gerrard, Tammy Abraham, and Alexis Sanchez throughout his career. See if you can guess who he is, and I'll put your comments in the next video. Now, of course, jumping back into domestic league news, we do start off with the Premier League, which not a lot of action has happened in the Premier League. I think, first of all, the likes of Jeffrey Schlupp did score in a 4-1 crushing of Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. Once again, not the result he would want, and definitely not good considering Palace have just sacked Vieira.
You idiot! You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
But at least Schlupp, obviously a Black Stars player, hopefully he can get back into that Chris Hughton team. Of course, the last little bit of Premier League news is the fact that Decore did score in the 69th minute versus Chelsea to get a 2-2 draw. Obviously, gigantic point, and we haven't seen a player at Everton do that well in the 69 since Gylfi Sigurdsson was there. I probably can't say that.
I don't know. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
Now, jumping into La Liga news. Now, of course, this might be the biggest piece of African news for this week, as the likes of Ivory Coast midfielder Kessie scored the winning El Clasico goal versus Real Madrid.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
But once again, 92nd minute, it is so great to see Kessie finally start to score for Barcelona, and in such a gigantic moment. I mean, one of the biggest moments you could have for Barcelona. I mean, the fact that an Ivory Coast midfielder absolutely made it look like a slice of cake. I mean, Yaya Touré must be slightly jealous.
This is great banter. It really is.
But of course, looking at other La Liga news, we did have the likes of Getafe beat Sevilla 2-0 in a game that saw Munya score against his former club. We also had the likes of Chikwueze, Nigerian winger, score a very crucial goal for Villarreal versus Osasuna that put Villarreal back in a top 6 race. Now, moving on to the Bundesliga, we had the likes of Sebastian Haller score 2 beautiful goals in a 6-1 win over Cologne for Borussia Dortmund, which, I mean, I don't know if someone told Sebastian Haller that Cologne's name was cancer, because he absolutely beat them.
Nice.
Now, jumping into Serie A news, I mean, we've already mentioned this man in the series before, but it is Victor Osimhen with another 2 goals this match week versus Torino, taking him to 21 goals in 23 games in Serie A. I mean, the fact that he's scored, 4 goals in all competitions this week alone shows how much of an absolute beast of a striker he will be. I mean, you do have to respect the tradition of Manchester United and Chelsea for them waiting for him to be his absolute maximum price before they buy him.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
Once again, absolute tradition for those 2 clubs, and I can't wait for someone to spend 200 million on him when he's past his prime. But obviously, looking at other Serie A news, we had the likes of Udinese get an absolute shock 3-1 win over Milan in a game that saw the likes of Kingsley Ehezabu, once again, sorry about pronunciation, the Nigerian score a very crucial goal. We also had the likes of Dia, Senegalese striker, reach his 10th league goal of the season versus Bologna in a very, very crucial game. Now, jumping into League One news, once again, we didn't have too much going on there, except for the fact that Cameroonian national player Karl Toko Ekambi scored in a very crucial 2-0 win over PSG, in a game where the only thing messy about that PSG team was their defense. I'm so sorry about that, but obviously looking at Karl Toko Ekambi, since joining the likes of Rennes, I feel like he's been so heavily underrated and an absolutely gigantic goal for him. Now looking at Strasbourg, they did get a 2-0 win over Aya in a game that saw Habib Diallo score his 14th goal in 28 games. Once again, I think people forget to look at the French league and how absolutely gigantic they have been with African players as of late. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it for African football news this week. Obviously, we do have to put forward a African player of the week, and I do believe that the African football player of the week just has to be Victor Osimhen. Obviously 4 goals in 2 games this week, it just has to be him. Obviously, I hope that you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please do like and please do subscribe, as it does help the channel out massively. Obviously, I will see you guys next week for another installment of African football this week. Guys, until next time, this has been Finn, FYNN. Cheers.